In 1927, physicist Werner Heisenberg visited Niels Bohr to discuss a problem that had been keeping them both awake. The problem was this: beneath all visible matter, beneath atoms, beneath particles, beneath the quantum field itself, there appears to be no solid substance. Only potential, probability, a field of infinite possibility that collapses into physical reality only when observed. 6 ancient traditions had described this field thousands of years earlier. 6 different names, 6 different languages, 6 different civilizations, one field. Werner Heisenberg, who gave physics the uncertainty principle, one of the foundational discoveries of quantum mechanics, later wrote about his conversations with the Indian philosopher Rabindranath Tagore. After those conversations, Heisenberg wrote, "After the conversations about Indian philosophy, some of the ideas of quantum physics that had seemed so crazy suddenly made much more sense." He was not the only physicist to say this. Schrödinger read the Upanishads. Bohr adopted the Taoist yin-yang symbol as his personal coat of arms when he was knighted. Oppenheimer recited the Bhagavad Gita at the first atomic test. The founders of quantum mechanics were not borrowing poetry from ancient traditions. They were recognizing that those traditions had already mapped. The territory physics was only now entering. In this video, we are going to do something simple. We are going to place 6 ancient descriptions of the quantum field side by side, from 6 traditions that never exchanged a philosophical text, and ask a single question. How did they all find the same thing? Vedic, Egyptian, Taoist, Hermetic, Buddhist, Sufi. 6 traditions, one quantum field. Here is what they called it. Before the 6 witnesses, a precise description of what they were all pointing at. Quantum field theory, the most accurate scientific theory ever constructed, describes the universe not as particles in empty space, but as a set of fields that permeate all of space simultaneously. Every particle you have ever observed, every electron, every photon, every quark, is not a tiny object. It is a localized vibration, an excitation of an underlying field. The electron is not a thing, it is a ripple in the electron field. Light is not a thing, it is a ripple in the electromagnetic field. And beneath all these individual fields, physicists now believe there may be a single unified field from which all the others arise. A field that is everywhere, that contains all potential, that precedes all matter, all energy, all space, all time. The hard question the one quantum field theory does not yet answer is this: what is the relationship between this field and consciousness? When a quantum system is measured when it is observed, its wave function collapses from a superposition of all possible states into a single definite state. The act of observation of consciousness interacting with the field changes what the field becomes. The 6 ancient traditions we are about to examine all gave the same answer to the question physics cannot yet resolve. Consciousness and the field are not 2 different things. The field is consciousness. The Vedic tradition is the most explicit. The Upanishads describe 2 concepts that together map the quantum field precisely. Brahman, the universal consciousness, is the ground from which all phenomena arise, not a god, not a force. The field itself aware, unlimited, undivided. Akasha, often translated as ether or space, is the subtlest of the 5 elements. The Chandogya Upanishad states, "All beings arise from Akasha and return to Akasha." Akasha is greater than all these. Akasha is the field substrate, the medium in which all vibration propagates. Brahman is the consciousness that pervades it. Together, they describe what quantum field theory calls the unified field, with the property of consciousness that physics has not yet assigned to it. The Tao Te Ching opens with what may be the most precise description of the quantum field in ancient literature. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. The nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. The unnamed Tao, the field before observation, collapses it into named phenomena. The named, the 10,000 things matter, energy, particle, form. The Tao is described as omnipresent. The Tao is like a well, used but never used up. Non-local, the Tao is everywhere. The ground of all potential return to the root is called stillness. This is the return to one's destiny. This is quantum field theory in 400 words, written 2,500 years before Heisenberg. The Hermetic tradition, encoded in the Emerald Tablet and the Kybalion, names the quantum field with stark directness. The all is mind, the universe is mental. The all is described as infinite and omnipresent, existing everywhere simultaneously. The substance from which all matter is constructed not metaphorically but literally. The field within which all things exist as vibrations. The first Hermetic principle of vibration states, nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. The Hermetic tradition then adds something quantum field theory confirms. The all creates within itself, as a mental creation, the universe. The observer is not separate from what is observed. The field and the consciousness observing it are the same thing. The Buddhist tradition offers two complementary descriptions. Sunyata, often translated as emptiness, does not mean nothingness. It means empty of inherent, independent existence. Every phenomenon arises in dependence on every other phenomenon. Nothing exists separately from the web of relationships that constitute it. This is quantum non-locality, the finding that no particle can be fully described, independently of the particles it has interacted with. The universe is not made of independent objects. It is made of relationships. The Avatamsaka Sutra describes this through the metaphor of Indra's net, an infinite net stretching in all directions, with a jewel at each node, each jewel perfectly reflecting every other jewel simultaneously. Every point in the field contains the information of the whole. This is the holographic principle formalized by Leonard Susskind in 1993. The Buddhist tradition encoded it as a metaphor 2,000 years earlier. The Egyptian tradition describes the quantum field through two primordial principles. None, the primordial waters, is the undifferentiated field before creation, the formless potential from which all structure emerges. The coffin texts describe none as the waters of chaos containing all potential from which the first moment of creation arose. Atum, the self-created consciousness, emerges from none through an act of self-awareness. I am a tomb. I was alone. I brought myself into being. None is the quantum vacuum, the seething field of potential that modern physics confirms underlies all of space. Atum is the consciousness that observes and, in observing, collapses potential into actuality. The Egyptian creation account is a precise description of the measurement problem in quantum mechanics. The Sufi philosopher Ibn Arabi, writing in 13th century Andalusia, articulated what he called Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being. His argument was precise. There is only one existence, one field, one reality. What appears as multiplicity, separate objects, separate selves, separate events, is the single field of being expressing itself through infinite modes. Ibn Arabi wrote, "The cosmos is the self-disclosure of the real in the mirrors of the possible things. The real is the field, the cosmos is its self-reflection." This is the quantum field describing itself through its own excitations. The particle is not separate from the field that generates it. The self is not separate from the field of consciousness it arises from. 6 traditions, the same description. Let us see them all together. 6 traditions, 6 continents, 6 windows into the same question: what is the deepest layer of reality? The Vedic sages called it Brahman, sometimes Akasha, an omnipresent consciousness that is the ground of all matter. The Taoists called it the Tao, the unnamed origin, the mother of 10,000 things. Lao Tzu warned us, the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. The Hermetic tradition called it the All, a mental substance in which everything is vibration. The Buddhists described Sunyata, emptiness, and the image of Indra's net, where every jewel reflects every other jewel. Nothing exists independently. Everything is holographic. The Egyptians spoke of Nun, the primordial waters of pure potential, and Atum, the consciousness that collapsed that potential into form. And the Sufis Ibn Arabi and the mystics of Islam taught Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being, one field, infinite expressions. 6 names, 6 traditions, and here is what matters most: 0 documented philosophical contact between all of them. These were not borrowed ideas. These were not traded metaphors passed along the Silk Road. These traditions arrived at the same conclusion, independently separated by oceans, by centuries, by language, by culture. Now, place modern physics beside them. Quantum field theory describes an omnipresent field permeating all space that is the source of all matter, in which every particle is a localized vibration of that field, and in which observation, by a conscious agent, plays a fundamental role in determining what becomes real. Read that again slowly. Omnipresent, source of all matter, vibration. Observation collapses potential into form. Now ask yourself, which row in that table does quantum field theory match? All of them. Not 1, not 2, all 6. Every single tradition without a shared language, without a shared text, without a single conference call across 5,000 years of history, describe the same architecture of reality that physics is only now beginning to formalize with equations. And that is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. And patterns at this scale demand an explanation. The founders of quantum mechanics noticed the parallel themselves. Heisenberg, after reading Vedic philosophy, the ideas of quantum physics suddenly made much more sense. Schrödinger, after reading the Upanishads, the overall number of minds in the universe is just 1. Niels Bohr, after studying Taoism, adopted the yin-yang symbol as his personal coat of arms, because he said it perfectly represented the principle of complementarity that defines quantum measurement. David Bohm, after reading Krishnamurti and the Vedic tradition, the notion of a separate organism is clearly an abstraction. In reality, all parts of the world are woven together in one tissue. These were not casual observations. These were the architects of quantum mechanics, recognizing that the map had already been drawn in 6 different languages, by 6 different civilizations, thousands of years before they arrived at the territory. The most important frontier in modern physics is not a new particle. It is the question that all 6 ancient traditions answered, and that quantum mechanics keeps bumping into from the other side. What is the relationship between consciousness and the field? Integrated information theory, Giulio Tononi, proposes that consciousness is a fundamental property of the field itself, not produced by brains, present in any system that integrates information. If Tononi is right, then Brahman, the Tao, the All, Sunyata, Atum, and Wahdat al-Wujud were not poetry. They were data. Here is what 6 ancient traditions all agree on. The field they are describing is not distant. It is not theoretical. It is not something you need instruments to detect. Right now, in this moment, the field that Brahman describes, that the Tao points toward, that Sunyata opens into, is the same awareness that is reading these words. Not a metaphor, not a belief. Notice right now, without changing anything, the awareness that is present before any thought arises. The Vedics called that awareness Brahman. The Taoists said it cannot be named. The Sufis called it the real. Modern physics calls it the observer. But all 6 traditions agree on the most important thing. You are not separate from the field you are observing. 6 ancient traditions. 6 names for the same quantum field. 0 contact between them. They were not guessing. They were not mythologizing. They were reporting direct observations of the ground of reality, available to any human being who looked with sufficient depth. Ancient wisdom, quantum proof, direct knowing. This is quantum gnosis.